Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing an unbelievably powerful team in the Color Cup. This team is so strong that I was able to climb with it on my wife's account to reach legend rank and number 22 in the world in only 265 total battles. This team is so strong that I was able to go on a 15-game win streak at Leaderboard Elo from 2888 all the way up to that 3072 Elo. This is not a team of my own creation. I have to give all credit to the trainer named Give Me Your Arms, who crafted this unbelievably powerful team that cuts through the RPS nature of the Color Cup and allowed me to hit legend on my wife's account with a 72% win rate. Now, what is this team that defies the odds and provides absolutely insane win rates? Well, it all starts with Decidueye. Decidueye is unbelievably strong in this format. It is a very budget-friendly Pokemon, cheap to build. It's a grass ghost type. The moveset you're going to want to run is Astonish, Spirit Shackle, and your choice of Frenzy Plant or Brave Bird. I opted for Frenzy Plant for better matchups against the waters, but Brave Bird can be a nice get-out-of-jail-free card against Pokemon like Abomasnow and Jumpluff. The second Pokemon on the team, the safe switch and arguably the best Pokemon in the meta, is Talonflame. Talonflame's energy goes everywhere. Incinerate, Fly, and Brave Bird is incredible coverage into most things you're going to encounter along the way. And finally, the closer, the bulk of the team, is Toxapex. Toxapex is ranked number 1 in the meta on PvPoke, and it does a terrific job at being one of the few things in the meta that can actually survive a Talonflame Brave Bird, but also just being neutrally very strong. One incredibly important disclaimer: do not play this team until you've watched through the battles and learn how to play the different lead matchups and different safe switch matchups. This is a team where how you play it is very, very important. So I would highly recommend sit back, relax, enjoy the footage as I break down as many leads as I possibly can along this improbable climb up to number 22 in the world and only 265 battles played. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at the team in action in the Color Cup. Hopping into game number 1, leading Decidueye into Credilli. This is just a dominant lead win for Decidueye. A lot of Credillis will have double fire in the back. They're going to save switch into Shadow Charizard, and this is very fine for Decidueye. Basically, every double fire team gets completely soloed by a shield advantage Talonflame. So we're able to force a shield with Spirit Shackle. Now we can send in Toxapex to completely neutralize energy from the Shadow Charizard. Credilli is still very threatened by Toxapex. So honestly, if they bring in the Credilli, they're not going to have a great time as Sludge Wave does quite a lot of damage. They do just that, and now I get to fire off the neutral Sludge Wave. Sludge Wave is going to connect, dealing some pretty solid damage. They're going to need to throw energy because if they don't, I'm going to get to Sludge Wave number 2. So they're forced to go for the Grass Knot, and now I can just send in Talonflame. They're going to pivot out. They have their own Talonflame in the back. Here, I should have been ahead by 1 turn, so I should have actually not been in a CMP tie situation, as I should have been up a turn, but unfortunately my game does stutter a bit, so it does end up being a CMP tie. But even so, I just don't have a lose con at this point in the game, as Talonflame up a shield is able to go straight Brave Bird in this matchup. They will go for the Fly. I'm going to do 1 extra, and this is very important, as now this means I'm only 1 away from a Fly. And their Credilli is not 1 away from a move. So when they bring back in the Credilli, I can go for the Fly. Fly is going to do entirely too much damage to this Credilli, and that is going to pick up the knockout and take the win. We move to battle number 2, Decidueye versus Abomasnow. Bad lead, we're going to immediately save switch into Talonflame. The opponent is going to stay in for a little bit, transfer the Incinerate, and send in Toxapex. But this is a fatal mistake that my opponent has done. If Talonflame is up 1 Incinerate of energy, it cleanly wins the 2s versus Toxapex going straight Fly. And a lot of trainers think, okay, Toxapex, Talonflame's never flipping it. I can get some energy before switching in, and you can use this to punish their slow switch in. As now with Talonflame, I'm going to be able to get to back-to-back flies, and I'm going to take switch advantage, which means that my Decidueye is no longer going to be stuck against Abomasnow. I'm at the back-to-back flies, they realize this, they still end up shielding, and now I just have switch advantage, and I'm not even at a shield deficit. In the back, they have Quagsire, and this game is over. Talonflame up energy is just absolutely terrifying into most things in this meta. Brave Bird does huge damage. I send in Decidueye, they bring in Abomasnow, and Abomasnow is going to get absolutely shredded by the Toxapex. So a situation where the opponent technically had me hard countered. They had Abomasnow for my Decidueye, they had Toxapex for my Talonflame, and they even saved the Quagsire in the back to beat my Toxapex, but Talonflame is just much too good, able to flip switch and win the game. Great lead in the next match, Decidueye versus the Ferrothorn. Opponent safe switches into Morpeko. Usually Ferrothorn leads is double fire in the back, so you can just stay in with the Decidueye against the Charizard, sack it, and then reverse sweep them with your Talonflame. But a Morpeko safe switch proves to be problematic. There are basically two ways you can deal with a Morpeko safe switch. One is how I'm playing it here, which is tank a move on Decidueye, grab a shield with Spirit Shackle, and then just incinerate down with Talonflame, as Morpeko does not have the stats needed to withstand the incinerates, and Talonflame up energy is just always good. Talonflame's energy just goes absolutely everywhere in this format, just about. They're going to send in Turtonator as their final Pokemon. Turtonator, I go straight for the Brave Bird, that does huge damage, and now I'm going for another Fly. I will survive this next Incinerate. I'm expecting them to go for the farm down, so I quick switch into the Toxapex. I snipe down 100 energy on the Turtonator, and the opponent will immediately concede the match. Picking up a pretty okay lead, Decidueye versus Shadow Charizard. Look at these Astonishes in this matchup. Charizard, since it opts for Dragon Breath in this cup, ends up being very fraudulent into a lot of the grasses, and Decidueye offers a tremendous amount of neutral play. If I want to, I could shield and play this out, but instead, I would much rather save an advantage for my Talonflame. So now I can bring in the Talonflame, I'm going to go for a one shield farm down, and now I'm just going to have Talon energy for days. And again, this energy just goes so far against just about anything you're going to see. They bring in a Quagsire, which is a tough Pokemon for this backline to deal with. I just go straight for the Brave Bird right off the bat. That connects, and that does so much damage. I'm able to get to the Fly. Fly is actually on a CMP tie here. The Fly is going to be shielded by my opponent, and now I have a choice to make. I decide to trust in the Toxapex. They went for a Mud Bomb. It does not KO. They have their own Decidueye in the back. Decidueye does do very, very well against Toxapex, but down a shield, this is Toxapex's game to win. So I save the shield, tank the Frenzy Plant, fire off the neutral Sludge Wave. Sludge Wave into Decidueye is going to do big damage. We get the farm down. All that's left is a Quagsire that is much too low, and that's a good game. Picking up a decent lead in the next match, Decidueye versus Alolan Marowak. In this matchup, if it's Fire Spin, they can one-shield farm you down. But then, you're more than happy to just absorb energy on the Toxapex, and again, try and sweep with Talon. Here, I do get the defense drop. It doesn't actually allow me to get the full farm down. Here, I bring in the Toxapex. I do get the one-turn lag, so I don't actually get the Poison Jab through that would have knocked out, and that allows them to get to a second charge move. So I'm going to take a bunch of extra damage on the Toxapex that I wouldn't have had to take. Oh, and I did forget to mention, this Toxapex is only 1459 CP because on her account, she didn't have enough candy to fully power it up. So that is right, I did hit number 22 in the world with a Toxapex that wasn't even fully maxed. But now, my opponent's in trouble. They have a Gastrodon staying in versus Talonflame, so they're very clearly weak in the back. I just go straight Brave Bird, it KOs, and they immediately resign the match as it's Ferrothorn in the back. We move to the next match, picking up a pretty solid lead, leading into Toxapex. Now this is a matchup where Decidueye's typing is going to be a pretty nice advantage. Because you're a Grass Ghost, you only take neutral from Poison. So I get to land the Frenzy Plant, which does quite a bit of damage. Here my opponent does make a timing error, so I do get a free Astonish. I shield up the Sludge Wave, and now I can just absolutely massively overfarm, and I will go for the Spirit Shackle on a CMP tie. Spirit Shackle, of course, will be lethal. They're much too low. And now I have switch advantage. They bring in Abomasnow. I hard pivot Talonflame. It's Decidueye in the back. Since I have 2 answers to Abomasnow in the back, I just didn't want to stay in, so I banked a move, I hard pivot Talon. It turns out they're actually super weak to Talonflame in the back, so this game is going to be a win regardless. But even if they did have a good check to the Talonflame lurking back there, I still don't want to stay in a lead matchup after I've won if I have 2 answers to their second Pokemon in the back. So now I get to go for a fly against the Abomasnow. Abomasnow only throws 1 and the move, hoping that this will knock out so they don't take the Incinerate. The Weather Ball doesn't knock out. They take the Incinerate, but whether they took it or not, it didn't matter as Toxapex is here to shut it down. The Dream lead in the next match, leading Decidueye into Gastrodon. Opponent safe switches into Dugong, and I get to respond with Toxapex. For my opponent, flipping switch advantage feels like a must. They cannot have Gastrodon on Decidueye. But for me, I don't care about switch advantage because the only good matchup Gastrodon has into this team is against the Toxapex. So I'm very fine giving up switch advantage here because their Gastrodon is nowhere to run. Talonflame absolutely destroys Gastrodon. They go for an Icy Wind bait. That works out great for me, as that means this Drill Run will not KO. They need to go triple Drill Run if they want to pick up the knockout. That does not KO. I barely hang on, even with the underpowered Toxapex, to make it to a Sludge Wave, and Sludge Wave will get them into, I believe, 2 Incinerate range. I send in the Talon, I get the farm down, and now things are going to get very difficult for my opponent. I'm just going straight for the Brave Bird here. Brave Bird is going to connect. That's huge damage. They switch into Toxapex, and now I can switch into Decidueye. So my opponent was just ABA weak to Decidueye. Decidueye is an incredibly strong neutral presence in this meta, as even in its bad matchups, it does have a tremendous amount of play. One thing I want to note about the Decidueye moveset, Spirit Shackle is a must. You absolutely have to run it on your Decidueye. There is an argument to be made where if you wanted to, you could actually run Spirit Shackle plus Brave Bird. It does drop some of its neutral strength against Pokemon like the Toxapex, but Brave Bird does allow you a get out of jail free card against Pokemon like Jumpluff and Abomasnow. But here, I have the back-to-back Frenzy Plants, so there's just nothing Gastrodon's going to be able to do here. That Frenzy Plant is enormous overkill, and we're able to take the win. In the next match, we're met with a familiar lead, Decidueye versus Alolan Marowak. Again, we're staying in. We're just going to deal massive Astonish damage, go straight for the Spirit Shackle as soon as we get there. If it's a Fire Spin Marowak, they can one-shield farm down. If it's a Hex Marowak, you actually out-damage them, and you can actually control switch. Here, my opponent doesn't want to take extra damage, so they actually end up throwing a move. They go for the Bone Club, and that's very fine by me, as now I can just bring in Toxapex. My opponent is going to pivot into Credilli, and I'm expecting if they're pivoting Credilli that they very well could have another Grass type lurking in the back. But Toxapex into Credilli is fine, so I'm very okay staying in here. Credilli is going to fire off the Grass Knot, as that is the significantly better charge attack that it has. Farming up again with the Toxapex, going for the Brine, and Brine will knock them out unless they're willing to shield. They do decide to shield. I switch into the Talonflame, and I catch a double resisted Grass Knot. Just a devastating catch for my opponent. They are going to make it to a Rock Slide, but I effectively neutralized a lot of energy with that catch. Now I have Talonflame and a shield. In comes the Alolan Marowak. I know that I can no-shield here. They go for the Bone Club. That's not going to cut it, and I'm expecting its Ferrothorn in the back as they immediately resign the match. Decent lead in the next match, leading into another Toxapex. Toxapex again, I'll stay in, go straight for the Frenzy Plant, and I will typically look to shield up the Sludge Wave. As Sludge Wave, even though it's only neutral, does hit for quite a bit of damage onto Decidueye. Opponent now going to pivot to a Shadow Amoonguss, and it's very important if you see an Amoonguss safe switch that you answer with Talonflame. Here, because of Shadow, I will respect it. If it's non-Shadow, you can just tank the move and farm down, but versus the Shadow, that damage is actually quite a bit more threatening. They bring in Toxapex, and here I make a massive, massive error. I thought they had left in fly range, but they weren't, and that forces me to give up my final shield as I don't want to surrender this Brave Bird. In the back, they're going to have their own Decidueye, but since I preserved the Talon, I should be able to get to 2 flies here. And the Incinerates are adding up as well. So I was down 2 shields to 0. A split second later, we're back at shield neutrality. I can pivot into my Decidueye just to force their energy because they know I was 2 away from the Spirit Shackle. And now I can bring in Toxapex, and it doesn't matter what they do. They're getting fully poison jabbed down. They will go for the Spirit Shackle, fishing for a debuff. It will not happen, and the opponent will concede the match. It's like looking in a mirror in the next game, Decidueye versus Decidueye. I will go for the Spirit Shackle right away. Opponent is going to make a nice catch as they catch onto Kingdra. Kingdra, the ideal place you want it on this team is against the Toxapex, as Toxapex is just so bulky that it can actually survive an Outrage. Here, I try and go for the Sludge Wave, but they're going to fire off their energy right before I get there. Outrage connects, and that deals some pretty substantial damage, and it turns out it was actually a CMP tie. That's a bit unfortunate. I go for an Undercharge on the Sludge Wave, but it's still too much damage, and it will KO. Opponent now going to send in their final Pokemon. It's going to be Dewgong, and this is going to be a very interesting game. I have a lot of energy here. Do I really want to let it go to waste? I say yes. I'm going to trust in Talonflame to try and win this game. So I send in Talonflame. Talonflame generally does have a decent matchup against Dewgong, but this is still going to be uncomfortable. They have a move available on Decidueye. They're finally going to fire off some energy with the Dewgong. Where do I decide to use my shields? I say that I'm going to use it here. They're already at another Icy Wind, and this is going to be tricky. I decide to let it go. I do not want to get combo played by a Spirit Shackle. I just fire off the fly here instantly, looking to put pressure onto the Dewgong. Dewgong is going to shield. I make it to another fly. Even though I am heavily debuffed here, this should come very close to KOing. It barely does not. We switch Decidueye into Decidueye. It's a simultaneous KO, but I get farmed down by the Dewgong, and unfortunately we lose by the narrowest of margins. We see a great lead in the next match leading into Shadow Alolan Golem. Anytime you see Shadow Alolan Golem, you can pretty safely assume it's going to be the SS Thorn team, which is Golem, Amoonguss, Jumpluff. And this team comp has a massive team comp advantage against that one. Even with Sludge Bomb, Amoonguss, unless it's Shadow, it's not going to be able to flip the Talonflame matchup, so I can no shield, get the farm down, and if it's the Jumpluff in the back, Toxapex is just a complete wall to that Pokemon. In comes the Golem. I do actually get the Brave Bird here. Most of the time I wouldn't get it, but I do actually get a Brave Bird. Honestly, that damage is not going to affect the outcome of this game, as it does turn out to be the Jumpluff variant in the back. They go Wild Charge, in comes Jumpluff, I send in Toxapex, and the opponent will resign the match. Now, some people may be wondering, how does this team deal with a Jumpluff or superior lead? Like this. You stay in to start with Decidueye, throw 4 Astonishes, wait a turn, and get a catch and sneak onto Talonflame. This way, you save 40 energy on the Decidueye, you get 20 free energy on your Talonflame, and you waste a lot of energy on their lead Pokemon. They refarm a little bit before sending in Kingdra. I bait with the Fly. They will shield and fish for a debuff with Octazooka. I'm going to shield because even if I get the Octazooka debuff, Brave Bird still does absolutely insane amounts of damage. So I go for the Brave Bird. I wasn't debuffed. It picks up the KO, and now I have successfully won switch advantage. In the back, the opponent has Toxapex, and they knew that Toxapex was going to be in a difficult position with my Talonflame being up and Incinerate, so they weren't able to bring it in. But now with switch advantage, this is just a completely one game. I get to bank some energy, bring my Toxapex into theirs to force them to switch out into Superior, because they know they can't waste their Toxapex energy against mine. So the switch in there just puts me in a very good position. Brian is probably not even going to KO here. I hope it does, as I won't have to take any additional damage, but even if it doesn't, this game is just still won, because I can just save the shield for Decidueye, and Decidueye will be able to clean up this game. So even though they do have a grass type on the lead, we're still able to get the job done. It's a grass type that beats Decidueye, but we're actually the ones who are going to be taking the victory. I can make it to 2 Spirit Shackles here. My opponent knows this. They know they can't farm down. So to save both of us the time, they're just going to no-shield the Spirit Shackle. We move to the next match, Decidueye versus Shadow Alolan Marowak. Again, pretty okay for Decidueye. This one's actually on Hex. Hex has better energy generation than Fire Spin, but as you notice, it does less damage. Astonish is actually out-damaging the Hex by quite a significant amount in this matchup, so I'm fine one shield farming down after they commit the shield. They're going to pivot out into Credilli. I'm going to look to farm up a ton of energy, and since they switch-locked the Credilli, I can now more or less invalidate their energy with Toxapex. It's a battle of neutral Pokemon, but Toxapex's bulk just means it can just shut down this energy. Grass Knot after Grass Knot will connect, and Toxapex just does not care. Toxapex shakes off the damage, goes for the Sludge Wave, and the opponent is already down 1 shield. Are they really willing to go down 2? No, they will get KO'd. In comes the Marowak. Marowak can pick up a knockout with a Bone Club, but that's all right by me. Toxapex has done its job. I do have energy on the Decidueye, but I'm sending in the Talonflame. It's going to be Walrein in the back. Walrein farming up a ton of energy. And these Incinerators have done enough to where a Fly probably KOs. So I throw the Fly, they shield, there's the combo play with Decidueye. Frenzy Plant is going to erase that Walrein, denying all that energy. In comes the Marowak, and the opponent will concede the match. Hopping into what I believe is the final match of the video, Decidueye versus Qwilfish. I think I only battled against one Qwilfish with this team. Qwilfish has insanely fast pacing, but you may notice here as the game accidentally forces me into an overtap where I throw an alignment, Qwilfish is super frail. Qwilfish purely off fast moves is already almost at red health. I do get lucky with the debuff here. I shield at the last second and I get the shield call right. It is the Ice Beam. That completely puts me in the driver's seat of this matchup. Ice Spirit Shackle, they let it go. They go Abomasnow, so I hard pivot out into Talonflame, and they're going to respond with Quagsire. And this is why we hard pivot out after we win the lead and they bring in Abomasnow. Because if they have something like the Quag in the back, you need to make sure that you're baiting it out. And now Quag, it's going to be able to KO the Talonflame. That's very okay. They go for the Stone Edge, but now I can bring in Decidueye, and Decidueye will be able to make it to a Frenzy Plant. So I will commit the shield. Quagsire is going to go for the Stone Edge. Switch Clock not yet available. They're unable to save the Quag. They're getting one shot by the Frenzy Plant. In comes Abomasnow just to get neutralized by the Toxapex, and the opponent will concede the match. And at the end here, I have claiming the Legends at 3,072 elo. So from rank 1 to number 22 in the world in only 265 battles played. All in all, this team is absolutely cracked. A massive thank you to the team's creator, Give Me Your Arms, for sharing this team with me. This is an extremely budget-friendly team, and that's what I needed for this account, because this account doesn't really have any PvP Pokemon, so having a team like this that was more budget-friendly was a massive help. Again, a couple notes. I think learning the matchups with this team is a must. It's very easy to play this team poorly if you don't know how to play out certain leads, but if you take the time to learn the certain lead matchups and how to play out safe swaps and whatnot, and a lot of the time rely on Talonflame with an advantage, this team can take you very, very far. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and make sure notifications are on so that way you never miss an upload. And an extra special thank you to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.